In today's episode, a car floats, a car goes up an artificial dune, and a factory the size of San Francisco which isn't there. You're watching Marek Drives, and this is what I saw in China. Yes, I went to China to see the Beijing Auto Show. You can watch a separate episode about it by clicking the link on the screen or in the video description. But the main goal of my hosts, BYD, was to present their latest achievements to the media. BYD paid for my flight and accommodation, but no one from the company had seen any preview of this episode before publication, and they're watching it for the first time with you. From Warsaw, this is where I'm from, we flew to Beijing, from where we went to Zhengzhou, which is about 700 kilometers south of Beijing. The city of 13 million in Henan province is the 11th largest in China by population, and we're talking about a sprawling metropolis, as there are no crowds in the streets. The distance from one end of the city to the other is about 30 kilometers, and the BYD factory located in the Zhengzhou Airport Economic Zone is at least twice that distance from the city center. This is currently BYD's largest plant, producing so-called new energy vehicles, or NEVs, which, according to the Chinese classification, include plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles. We'll talk about the factory in a moment, but the first day of our official visit began at the newly opened NEV test track located near the factory. The facility is part of BYD's Research and Development Center. It features a nearly 1.8 kilometer long racetrack, skid pads, and a facility for simulating and testing intelligent driving functions. Now, it might sound like your average training track, but this one also features a 70-meter long wading pool and a nearly 30-meter high artificial sand dune with a 28-degree slope. Now, as a motoring journalist, I've participated in numerous skid pad training exercises, so these kinds of demonstrations don't really impress me, especially if, instead of improving my driving skills, they're intended to demonstrate that the car performs as intended. Now, something may have got lost in translation, but yes, the Denza Z9 GT has excellent traction control, and thanks to its 3 electric motors, it's easy to control a car weighing nearly 3 tons, within reason, of course. The next exercise was more interesting, as for the first time I was able not only to see but also experience in person parallel parking with dragging of a rear axle. This means that the car, in this case a 520 centimeter long Denza N8L, detects a parallel parking space, but instead of driving past it and backing into it, it enters diagonally, nose first, and then the electric motors on the rear axle drag it into the gap from the rear end. Now, a few observations. First, our hosts set up a gap for a jumbo jet, but I suspect they wanted to avoid situations where the system doesn't detect the space on the first try or doesn't complete the maneuver in one go. That's logistics. Secondly, at first glance, this parking method seems unnecessary, since one can usually parallel park a car backwards, and even if you can't do it properly, an average parking assistant available in almost every car segment for the last 10 years can. After some thought, however, I've come to the conclusion that the problem with parallel parking might not be the driver's technique, but the behavior of other drivers. When you pass the space and stop to engage reverse, the driver behind you is often already on your bumper, and even if they want to back up to let you maneuver, they often can't because they have another tailgating champion behind them. From this perspective, entering a parking space forward and then dragging the rear axle makes sense, but thirdly, it's a tire shredder. The Denza N8L weighs 3 tons, so just by simply driving, it's eating through the tires like a dog left alone with a bag of kibble. And the added friction from spinning wheels like tank trucks certainly doesn't help. Our demonstration took place in the rain, but it must be much harsher on the tires when the tarmac is dry, and imagine all the smoke and tire dust. There was also a demonstration of reverse parking and exiting. It was one of the most confident, if not aggressive, parking maneuvers I've seen done by an automatic system. Of course, we were on a track in a controlled environment and the system was able to operate at 100%. I don't know if or how quickly the car would maneuver in real traffic where there are other moving objects, including people. Now, the next demonstration was perhaps the most spectacular as it took place in a wading pool. You've probably already seen videos online of an SUV floating on water and wondered how, why, and what for. Well, let me explain. The model in question is the Yangwang U8. Yes, it's another BYD brand, but it's not the same car as the Fangcheng Bao 8, also known as the Denza B8 and the Leopard 8, even though at first glance they look similar. Yangwang is BYD's highest ranking brand in China. Next comes Fangcheng Bao and then Denza. Now, the export Yangwang and Fangcheng Bao models are sold worldwide under the Denza brand because no one outside China fully understands the differences between the brands and models. In any case, the Yangwang U8 is a luxury SUV costing around 150,000 euro in China, probably double that if you import it to Europe. It's a plug-in hybrid with nearly 1200 horsepower, a combination of a 2-liter petrol engine and an electric motor, which draws power from a 49 kilowatt-hour traction battery. That's more than the BYD Dolphin Surf EV Super Mini. And it floats. How? Well, Archimedes' principle of buoyancy states that any object submerged in a fluid experiences an upward buoyant force equal to the weight of the fluid it displaces. In layman's terms, the cabin is airtight, the windows closed, the ventilation switches to recirculation mode, and only the sunroof opens to provide an escape route in case of emergency. It's basically a large container filled with air that floats on water. Water only enters the engine bay, and we'll get to that in a moment. Now, in this sailing mode, the car is propelled and steered by rotating of the wheels. It doesn't move fast at up to 3 kilometers per hour, and it doesn't travel very far as it can float for up to half an hour. Now, BYD isn't advertising this as a recreational feature, but rather an emergency solution in case of flash floods, something for wealthy people whose only fear is losing their lives before they can upload their wisdom to the cloud. After a bath like this, the car must undergo service, which will cost around 2,000 euro plus parts. But can you put a price on life? And just to be clear, BYD doesn't have a monopoly on floating cars. The Jetour G700 can also do this, and apparently it doesn't require an inspection after each submersion. Next up was a track drive behind the wheel of the Yangwang U9, an electric supercar, the extreme version of which, until recently, held the title of the world's fastest car. While waiting for our turn, we had the opportunity to familiarize ourselves with the track on a simulator, and I suspect that seeing our skills, or at least mine, and considering the weather conditions, the organizers decided to dial down most of U9's 3,000 horsepower. But even so, in the corners, I felt enough G-force that I didn't mind getting only 2 laps. The U9 is fast and capable, point proven. Off-road track sessions were scheduled for the next day, but to give us a taste of what the Yangwang U8 can do off-road, the organizers showed us a climb up an artificial sand dune. At first glance it might seem easy, but I have enough experience getting stuck in the desert to know that it's much more complicated than it seems. High power, high torque, and independent control of the motors on each wheel certainly help here. This will be a hit in Dubai. Drift enthusiasts will also be delighted, as the high power, torque from zero, and the ability to disengage traction control offer a wealth of possibilities. You just need plenty of space and preferably a closed track, as your local supermarket roundabout might prove insufficient. Now, before we drift away completely, the hosts decided to show us their pride and joy, the largest NEV factory. Construction began in September 2021, and the first cars rolled off the assembly line in April 2023. Now, there are some rumors regarding this factory circling the internet, source of which is unclear. Some online outlets cite unconfirmed information claiming the factory has a larger area than San Francisco, covering over 121 square kilometers or 12,000 hectares. There is a lot to unpack here. First of all, I've never been to San Francisco, and my only association with the city are the Golden Gate Bridge, hilly terrain, and the sitcom Full House. San Francisco, however, isn't the metropolis we might imagine when we picture the 2,700-meter-long Golden Gate Bridge. In terms of area, San Francisco is somewhere between Turin and Toulouse. That's not to say that a factory the size of Toulouse isn't enormous. It is. Or rather, it would be, because it doesn't exist. Let me explain. The reports circulating online about BYD's largest factory were based on visualizations that depict not only production halls but also yards where the cars sit awaiting transport, as well as housing and recreational infrastructure for the employees of this future factory city. When asked about the details, BYD representatives didn't have a clear answer. There's no mention of this on the BYD press website, and I assume that during one of the media tours, someone misinterpreted something, and that's how this rumor started. Regarding the factory itself, satellite images show that the currently operating facility covers approximately 10 square kilometers, with construction underway to double that number. At least 7 models are produced here, including BYD Dolphin Surf. Now, BYD boasts a high degree of automation, reportedly exceeding 98%. I don't know the methodology behind this claim. While automating stamping, welding, and painting is nothing new or unique, the assembly line, final assembly, still requires human workers. Now, filming opportunities at the factory were controlled and limited, so much of what I'm showing you now is BYD stock footage. However, I had the impression, and I wasn't alone, that for a plant capable of producing 1 car per minute, the density of equipment and cars on production lines was rather underwhelming. More is happening at the much smaller Stellantis factory in Tychy, and during Fiat's peak activity there, 1 car left the Tychy factory every 46 seconds. And that was the end of first day of our tour. The second day began with a 1.5-hour coach ride to the off-road track. This wasn't the paved track we saw on the first day at the test center, but a private track rented specifically for this event. It had clay tracks, which, due to heavy rainfall the previous day, were much muddier than the organizers had anticipated. Therefore, the decision was made to limit media activity behind the wheel to a short, low-speed route. Here again, the Yangwang U8 flexed its muscles, coping remarkably well for a 3.5-ton behemoth. Of course, the cars were fitted with off-road tires, and thanks to the pneumatic suspension, the ground clearance was significantly raised. But even this didn't prevent minor damage. 1 car had bent the automatically extending side steps that interfered with the plastic door cladding. Now, for people who are into off-road, this would be just cosmetic matter, but here it simply made it difficult to change drivers, as the organizers didn't want to simply rip out a damaged component. Now, there was also a test drive in the Fangchengbao Ti7, also known as the Leopard Titanium 7, and in Europe it will be known as the BYD Ti7 DMI. DMI means it's a plug-in hybrid. It has a 1.5-liter engine and a 26 or a 36 kilowatt-hour traction battery. The car looks great, by the way. You can find out more about this car in the episode from the Beijing Auto Show. And since the second part of the track was relatively fast and twisty, an experienced driver was behind the wheel of the Ti7 and we simply watched him struggle on the slippery clay surface. And yes, the car drives, and that's pretty much it I have to say about it. The third day was our last in Zhengzhou. In the morning, we were taken to a BYD DI space. It's a kind of museum connected to showrooms of all BYD brands. I suspect it's much better to experience it when you speak Chinese or in a smaller group. Now, there were several dozen of us divided into 2 large groups with guides and interpreters. And yes, in 30 years, BYD came a long way, or rather made a galactic leap forward from a manufacturer of cell phone batteries to one of the largest manufacturers of modern electric and hybrid cars in the world. The final highlight of the Zhengzhou program was supposed to be a demonstration of flash charging, BYD's new fast charging technology. Now, what you see here in the cutaways is merely a demonstration what the infrastructure will look like. For certain reasons, the charging demo didn't happen as planned. Flash charging enabled cars will accept up to 1500 kilowatts, allowing them to recharge from 10 to 97% state of charge in 9 minutes under optimal conditions. Charging from 10 to 70% would take just 5 minutes. BYD claims that even at minus 30 degrees Celsius, charging from 20 to 97% will only take 12 minutes. Batteries capable of handling this level of power are now only found in the Denza Z9 GT, but they are also expected to be used in other models, including BYD. This, of course, will require a new network of chargers, which BYD is planning to start installing in Europe alone, as well as with charging network partners. The charging network consists of this distinctive T-shaped structure with charging cables extending from it. Next to it are 2 energy storage units with a capacity of 185 kilowatt hours each. These will recharge at a lower rate than they could output. At full capacity, this should be enough to charge vehicles with 100 kilowatt hour batteries one after another within the 10 to 97% range. We'll see how it works in real life when such stations become available closer to home. The next stage of our trip was the Beijing Motor Show, which I have a separate episode on my channel. What do you think about what I saw in Zhengzhou? Did anything catch your eye? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time. And don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.